students, welcome to Sarushi classes and today we are going to learn NCERT Class 6 History Chapter 10, 12 and this is last chapter and this is paintings, buildings and the books. So we are going to know something about the painting and building and books during that time. So first we are going to see pillar. This is the pillar. Here you will see the picture of this iron pillar and this iron pillar is at Mehroli, Delhi is a remarkable example of the skill of Indian craftsperson and it is made of iron and is of 7.2-meter height and weighs over 3 tons and it was made about 1500 years ago and we know the date because there is an inscription on the pillar mentioning a ruler named Chandra who probably belonged to the Gupta dynasty and the amazing fact is that the pillar has not rusted in all these years. So this was about this iron pillar. So let us discuss something about the buildings during that time. So there were different types of building. These buildings were stupas or the temples. So here you will see the picture of the great stupa at Sanchi, Madhya Pradesh, and this was here behind this you will see a dome-like structure which was made up of brick mound and probably dates to the time of Ashoka. And here is the railings and the gateways. Here is the railings you will see, and here is the gateway you will see. These were added during the time of later rulers. So the word stupa means a mound, and while there are several kinds of stupa, that those were round and tall, big and small, and these have certain common features. Generally, there is a small box placed at the center or heart of the stupa, and this may contain the bodily remains of Buddha or his follower, and these remains may be teeth or bones or ashes of these persons or things they used, and as well as the precious stones and coins. So this box, known as a relic casket, and it was covered with the earth, and later a layer of mud, brick, or baked brick was added on the top, and then the dome-like structure was sometimes covered with a carved stone slab. So this was about the stupa. Let me show you the detailed structure of the stupa. Here you will see the dome structure and here you will see the railings and here you will see something is surrounded by this. Here you will see these gateways and things. So here is the path. So here you can enter from these gateways and these gateways are known as toranas, and after this here is the area which is surrounded by these uh, which surrounds this structure which is called as anda. So these surrounding routes were known as the Pradakshina Path, and this was laid around the stupa, and this was surrounded with the railing. So here you will see here is a railing. So these are the Pradakshina Pathas, and these is surrounded with the railing, and the entrance to this path was through these gateways. So these gateways are known as toranas. So, and here is this dome is known as anda, and here you will see these are the pradakshina pathas, and here this is the structure. Here you will see it's a chhatri which is exactly on the top, below which there is a boxes, and these boxes were the relic caskets, and in these relic caskets there were bodily remains of the Buddha or his followers were preserved. So this was about the stupa. Now let us discuss something about the temple. So some of the earliest Hindu temples were also built at this time, and deities such as Vishnu, Shiva and Durga were worshipped in these shrines. So the most important part of the temple was the room known as Garbhagriha, where the image of chief deity was placed, and it was here that priests performed religious ritual and devotees offer worship to this deity. So there were two sites that we are going to discuss, and these are Bhitargaon and Mahabalipuram. So in Bhitargaon you will find a temple which made up of tower, and this tower is known as Shikhara, and which is placed on the top of Garbhagriha. And there is also Mandapa. Mandapa is nothing but a hall where the assemblies happens, and people praise in a groups in this hall. And here is the another side. Here is the temple in the Mahabalipuram, which is made up of a single uh, lit means stone. So it is made up of single stone. And another temple of Durga is at Aihole. Let me show you the picture of it. So here it will give you a clear idea. So here is an early temple at the Bhitargaon, which is in present day Uttar Pradesh. It is built about 1500 years ago and was made of baked brick and stone. So another picture here you will see that these are the temples at Mahabalipuram, and each of these was carved out of a huge single stone. That's why they are known as monoliths, as the name itself indicates. Mono means one, and lith means or lithos means a stone. So it is made up of a single stone. And here the another picture you see, this is the Durga temple at Aihole, which is built about 1400 years ago. So the tower known as Shikhara and was built on the top of Garbhagriha. So here is the Garbhagriha and this is the Shikhara, and to mark this out as a secret sacred place, this was done. And most places also had a space known as Mandapa. So Mandapa, as I have already told you, that it is a hall where the people could assemble. So this was about it. But the question came into our mind, that how these temples were built. So there were several stages in building stupas or temples, and usually kings or queens decided to build these as it was an expensive affair, right? So first, good quality of stones had to be found, and then they must be quarried, and then they must be transported to the place that was often carefully chosen for the new building. And here these rough blocks of stone had to be shaped and carved into pillars and panels for walls, floors, and ceilings, and then these had to be placed in precisely the right positions. So, kings and the queens probably spent money from their treasury to pay the craftsperson who worked to build these splendid structures. And besides, when devotees came to visit the temple or the stupa, they often brought gifts which were used to decorate the buildings. For example, an association of ivory workers paid for one of the beautiful gateway at Sanchi, and among others who paid for decoration were merchants, farmers, garland makers, perfumers, maids, and hundreds of men and women who are known only by their names, which were inscribed on the pillars, railings, and the walls. So when you get a chance to visit any of these buildings, remember how several hundreds of people probably worked to construct and decorate them. So with this we come to know that how these temples were built. So let us discuss about the paintings. So here you will see the painting. This is a very famous painting of Ajanta caves. So these Ajanta caves, so you have to find the place of Ajanta in the map first. Just open map in your textbooks and find the Ajanta and locate the Ajanta on your map. So this is a place where several caves were hollowed out of the hills over centuries, and most of these were monasteries of Buddhist monks, and some of them were decorated with paintings. So here are some examples. So here you will see an example of this painting. As the caves are dark inside, most of these paintings were done in light of torches. So the colors, which are vivid even after 1500 years, were made of plants and minerals, and the artists who created these splendid works of art remain unknown. So this is about the paintings in the Ajanta caves. So let us discuss something about the books during that time. So some of the best known epics were written during this period, and epics are the grand long compositions about heroic men and women and include stories about God. And there was a Famous Tamil epic, which is known as Silappatikaram, was composed by a poet named Ilango, and around 1800 years ago. It is the story of a merchant named Kovalan who lived in the Puhar, and he fell in love with a courtesan named Madhavi and neglecting his wife Kanagi. Later, he and Kanagi left Puhar and went to Madurai, where he was wrongly accused of theft by the court jeweler of the Pandya king, and the king sentenced Kovalan to death. And Kanagi, who still loved Kovalan, was full of grief and anger at this injustice, and she destroyed the entire city of Madurai. So this is about it. And the another Tamil epic known as Manimekalai was composed by Satanar around 1400 years ago. So here you will see. So it is composed by Satanar around 1400 years ago, and this describes the story of daughter of Kovalan and Madhavi. And so this is a beautiful composition were lost to the scholars for many centuries till their manuscripts were rediscovered about 100 years ago. So this was about it. And also the poem made by the Kalidasa named as Meghaduta was very famous, which tells us about the monsoon cloud as a messenger. So let me tell you something about the books during that time. The number of Hindu religious stories that were in circulation earlier were written down around the same time. So these includes the Puranas. So what do you mean by the Puranas? So the Purana literally means the old. The Puranas contain stories about gods and goddesses such as Vishnu, Shiva, Durga, or Parvati. So they also contain details on how they were to be worshipped. Besides, these are accounts about the creation of world and about the kings. And the Puranas were written in simple Sanskrit verses and were meant to be heard by everybody, including women and the Shudras who were not allowed to study the Vedas. So they were probably recited in temples by priests, and people came to listen to them. So two Sanskrit epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana had been very popular for a long time. Some of you may be familiar with these stories. The Mahabharata is about a war fought between Kauravas and the Pandavas, who were cousins, and this was a war to gain control of throne of the Kurus and their capital Hastinapura. The story itself was an old one but was written down in form in which we know it today about 1500 years ago, and both the Puranas and the Mahabharatas are supposed to have been compiled by Vyasa. The Bhagavad Gita, about which you learned in chapter 10, was also included in the Mahabharata. And now the Ramayana. The Ramayana is about the Rama, who is a prince of Kosala, who was sent into exile, and his wife Sita was abducted by the king of Lanka named Ravana, and Rama had to fight a battle to get her back, and he won and returned to Ayodhya, the capital of Kosala, after his victory. Like the Mahabharata, this was an old story that was now written down, and Valmiki is recognized as the author of Sanskrit Ramayana. And ordinary people also told stories, composed poems and songs, and sang, danced, and performed plays. So some of these are preserved in collection of stories such as Jatakas and the Panchatantras, which were written down around this time. So stories from Jatakas were often shown on the railings of stupa and in paintings in places such as Ajanta. So this was about it. So let me tell you a wonderful story of Monkey King. Here you will see a picture. This is nothing but a piece of sculpture found from a stupa at Bharut in central India. Let me tell you this story. Once upon a time, there was a great Monkey King who lived on the bank of Ganga in the Himalayas with 80,000 followers. So they fed on the fruit of special mango tree, which were very sweet. Such exquisite mangoes did not grow on the plains, and one day a ripe mango fell into the river, floated all the way to Varanasi, and there the king of the city, who was bathing in the river, found it and was amazed when he tasted it. So he asked the foresters of his kingdom whether they could find the tree for him, and they led him all the way to Himalayas. So there the king and his courtiers had their fill of the mangoes. So at night the king discovered that the monkeys were also feasting on the fruit and decided to kill them. However, the king of the monkeys worked out a plan to save his followers, and he broke off branches of the mango tree and tied them to form a bridge across the river, and held on to one end till all his followers crossed over, and exhausted with the effort he fell down and lay dying. So the human king saw what had happened and tried unsuccessfully to revive the monkey. When he died, the king mourned his death and paid him full respect. So this was the local story during that time. So this was also the time when the Aryabhatta, a mathematician and astronomer, wrote a book in Sanskrit known as Aryabhattiyam. He stated that day and night were caused by the rotation of the earth on its axis, even though it seems as if the sun is rising and setting every day. He developed a scientific explanation for eclipses as well. So he also found a way of calculating the circumference of circle which is nearly accurate as the formula we use today. So this is about the Aryabhatta. So next is the invention of zero. While the numerals had been used earlier, mathematicians in India now invented a special symbol for zero, and this is a system of counting was adapted by the Arabs and then spread to Europe. It continues to be in use throughout the world. This was about the zero. Let me tell you some interesting story about the invention of paper. Now, as we saw in all chapters of history, at the end of it, there is an international scenario that comes up. So here, what comes is an invention of paper. So here, it is very interesting to know that similar to silk, paper also invented in China, and they kept it secret for a very long period of time. So this was invented in China in 1900 years ago by the Kai Lun, and then this technology was transferred to Korea in 1400 years ago, and then from here it transferred to Japan. And whereas in Baghdad this technology came in 1800 years ago, and then it came into Europe and then to Africa. So with this we have come to an end of this chapter. If you like these videos, please hit the like button and share with your friends, and subscribe to our channels for more updates. Thank you.